Hold on, you guys are keep waiting for a couple people minutes. Start. Coach Johnson, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Because you're being a pain.
Hold on, gentlemen. 1 second. Going through a couple notes. All right. So, thank you for everyone being here. I know there's 11, so this is going to be a little bit different than what we've done in the past. I know when Coach Johnson and I talked, we could probably talk for a couple hours. But you know, I'm lucky to be, I'd say on this side of the computer. You know, fortunate to talk with gentlemen and women like Coach Johnson that are, I'd say, in the Division I, Division II, Division III field and high school field. So, Coach, I do appreciate your time by all means. And one of the cool things is, you know, we're sponsored by Rack Performance, Vertimax, and GymAware. So if you have organization needs that you need, I'd say for organize your weight room, Rack Performance, GymAware is all your DBT technology. So they're normal GymAware, they're Flex Stronger as well. And then Vertimax just started sponsoring it as well. So I'd say for any jumping or running resistance, I know their big one is the Raptor. So it's unique that, you know, all these people are, I'd say, coming in this kind of platform right now. So what's going to be a little bit different is we're going to kind of have this open discussion. So if you guys actually want, you can unmic yourself. You know, I know Coach Johnson and I we talked for a while. I think it was like an hour and a half. That was a lot. But you know, I think the unique thing is kind of, you know, the way we kind of went into coaching and culture like that. So, feel free to unmic yourselves, guys. You can also put anything you want in the chat because it's going to be kind of an open discussion, essentially directly like a roundtable. So we can start off pretty simply. I know the cool things about Coach Johnson was kind of the way he came up. It was, I'd say, a unique experience, at least. Going from, I think it was Akron, and then going back to your school. The one that most asked it was, you know, with everything going on, I'd say with, you know, COVID, how do you keep the all-in mentality and how do you keep the workouts fresh for all your athletes, Coach Johnson?
I mean, I guess the biggest thing and probably the hardest thing starting out was how can we keep it as similar to our normal routine or protocols as if, you know, this wasn't going on if we were all in the building. And, you know, first, that just the biggest thing, and I think in a good organization is communication. So that's where we started. We wanted to make sure we were able to communicate with each athlete and then figure out as a staff, well, what was the best way. So I think one of the first things we turned to was social media because they're all on social media. They're on Instagram, they're on Twitter all day, every day. So even, you know, while they're sitting in their online classes, I figured that social media was going to be kind of one of the first ways to kind of start that communication. So we sent them home with just a generic packet, something that we would normally send them home with just a normal off season. And then, we just started, I took some equipment, brought it home from the office, and I started posting my workouts. And then I would tag the players that I followed, I knew that followed me, kind of challenging them to post their workout videos. And that's just kind of how that started. So that was just really kind of the first piece of communication. And then as the days went on, like, there were changes daily. So the next biggest thing was coming up with how can we keep up with all these changes. You know, we come up with a certain protocol, and then the next thing you know, something changed. There's a certain amount of communication we can or cannot have. I'm not allowed to tag players because now things may become involuntary and required. So we had to get real creative with how we started doing that. So then we just, and then, you know, they start closing parks, they start closing weight rooms and gyms and some of the facilities that some of the guys were going to. So we had to adjust some of the workout plans and show one of my assistants in the actual apartment doing the workouts, or in, you know, garages and things of that nature. And then more things started changing. So then we had to call each individual player, find out exactly what type of equipment they had, and then cater the workouts, you know, for what type of equipment they had. And then we got approval to send home some care packages. So now we know what type of resistance bands and cones and things of that nature. So that was the next step. And like I said, once again, it's just all about communication. I think that's the first step that kind of helped us grow into knowing what we needed to do next. So, you know, every week as a staff, we sit and we're looking at ways we can communicate better, exactly what we need to be communicating, and then just ways to keep them engaged as if we were in the building every day. So that was kind of the first initial steps in where we are now.
It's a complicated situation. I'm sure it is for everyone on here. You know, obviously, you know, not everyone's going to have, you know, I'd say a bench or a squat rack or a bar for, you know, I'd say more than half our kids don't have anything. So I know, like, you see it on social media with, you know, the backpacks, water gallons. I've seen concrete buckets. So, you know, utilizing things that, you know, I think are everyday options, maybe in the sense of, you know, books and stuff like that. So, you know, it's a trying time, especially with how this is going on. I know in, like, Illinois, we have, as of right now, there's no contact days for football in the summer. So now you're I'd say, like, it's 25 days behind. Even as a strength staff, you're still behind. So finding ways for, you know, people to utilize what they have is, you know, has been unique. And you know, I'm sure everyone on here has got just a bunch of crazy ideas. But what are some of the things that you're, you know, trying to keep, I'd say, the same in regards to movements?
Whatever we can do that doesn't require a lot of load. And then, you know, how can we keep, what can we do where we can, you know, maintain or continue to expose them to certain velocities, you know, expose them to high speed, high force. I think that's the biggest things, because those are some of the things you lose the quickest, right? So I think that's where we had to sit down and figure out how can we keep those things present. So we just started, we regressed some of our plyometric programming. You know, how can we expose someone to high speeds when maybe they only have a backyard that might account for like 10, 15 yards, if that, right? Doing things, you know, wall runs against the house, some of our high intensity skips, you know, and then looking to lead into and progress some of the plyos. Hopefully we'll be getting closer to getting them back with us, and then progressing some of those plyos, you know, stuff that we feel okay with them doing at home with limited equipment. So then when they come back, you know, we're gonna Nora board them, we're gonna force deck them, and all that great stuff. So we have baseline numbers. We know where they were when they came off a winter break. We know where they were when we started football after 5 weeks of training, spring ball. So we'll get those numbers as soon as they get back. So just thinking about, okay, how can we keep those numbers as close as to where they were before they left? So that's kind of some of the stuff we looked at, because right now I can't sit here and try to put all my attention towards, weight, intensity from a weight standpoint, because maybe 5 or 10 guys have enough right now.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to be able to do. We'll get plenty of that when we come back, especially since we're going to be getting into an in-season mode a lot sooner than we normally would. Right? We're gonna get the high four stuff. We have to expose them to some of the velocities and speeds, and how can we do that safely with limited space? So that's kind of where we are in our programming right now. Is what are the things that we can't afford to lose? What's going to take the longest to get back once we're all back together, and what have they already lost just in the time that they've been at home?
Oh yeah, absolutely. What about I know a bunch of people have asked, I mean, over the time period, what are the ways you guys are going to bring them up to speed when you guys come back to school when it comes to getting them in the weight room? Are there restrictions that you guys will take in order to do that? Because it's kind of like return to play almost from, I'd say, post-injury, so to speak, just because of the time frame that's kind of been going on.
Yeah.
Are there any ideas that you guys have for that?
So, and I was just talking to one of our trainers the other day, and they agreed, like, the process that we already have in place for when our athletes come back from a break is very regimented, it's very structured, and it's regressed all the way to, I hate to say it, it sucks, but it kind of helps me prepare for this. We haven't been to a bowl game in the last 2 years. So teams that don't go to bowl games, they're already working with these long breaks already. Now, obviously, it's not as long as this one is, right? So I'm going to regress a little further than I would normally after like a 7-week break, right? But there's still going to be some type of regression. And it, so when we come back from breaks, we do a movement assessment with the training room with the program called Fusionetics, where we do movement screenings, and then the trainers will test out some range of motion. All right. And then we program our corrective program off of that for each individual player. And then that kind of leads into how we mailbox players. So everybody doesn't have the same program, and then we modify from there. All right. We're modifying based off movement assessment, what we already know. So like freshmen coming in, there's a developmental 1 group. I don't care if that person has been with a personal trainer or came from a high school that has a great strength and conditioning program. I have to figure out how good that strength and conditioning program is myself. So everyone is placed in a developmental 1 group where we're really just evaluating the quality of their movements after the assessment. Very basic movements. I mean, from goblet squats to front squatting. We might get them, put them up to a safety bar, and then, that's kind of our progression into like a barbell back squat. A lot of our Olympic variations on ground base, I was brought up all that since high school. So we're just introducing some of the basic movements. I like to work from the ground up. So that's where our developmental 1 group is. And even when those guys come in for the summer, they'll be in their own group. I do not put them with the veterans right away. That way, it's a smaller group. They have plenty of eyes on them from the 5 coaches and interns that we'll have. So we'll be able to coach our butts off with these new guys coming in. I put heart rate monitors on all of them. So we've already established if they have sickle cell trait, if they have asthma, they wear certain wristbands, so we know what's going on. If we start seeing certain signs, we can pull them. We communicate very well with our training staff. So we already have a program in place that is regressed based off of years, and also other modifications that we make. The next step up from the developmental 1 group is our modified group. We used to call it developmental 2, but then we changed that name to more modified, because those are the guys that we identify, like I mean, I had a couple that came in, they had broken wrists in high school, right? They didn't have good rehab, so the range of motion is really bad. There's still some pain in certain things. So we put them in a modified group, right? They're not going to catch a clean. It's just not going to happen. I got guys who are really bad with barbells on their back. So we're going to work in our corrective program to get them better. But what you end up finding is it's hard to change in 4 years what's been going on for 17, 18. Right?
Yeah.
So instead of back squatting, we'll do a lot of deadlift variations. We'll do some zercher if they look good with a safety bar. And then once we find where, they have good angles, good positioning, and it's pain-free, right? That's number one thing. That's when we get into, we start loading a little bit more. And then that guy might just safety bar squat and zercher squat his entire time, and deadlift his entire time here with me. We'll change up variations. Obviously, we're strength coaches. We know we change load, we change volume. It's basic principles is just, putting our athletes in a better position with that modified group. And then we have a team card where, the majority of the team is on. They're doing most of the Olympic variations. We just have a more steady progression into certain movements.
Yeah.
Right? Knowing that, they don't get a lot of some of that stuff when they're at home. They're decent movers. They're good. They can handle the movement. We kind of gradually progress loading it. And then by the time we're in that, 5th, 6th week, we're rolling. Okay. We're cleaning and jerking. We're snatching, catching at the bottom. I mean, we're into our Olympic variations and we're loading. All right. And then the last group is our advanced group. It's usually our older guys. All right. They've been in the program. They can handle the load. They can handle the velocities. Their movement's great. All right. They get into the positions that we want to without pain or without any compromise in any of those things. So that's our advanced group. And I mean, I like to brag. All right, JJ Taylor, our running back, I think they measured him at 5'6", 5'7" at the combine, 180, 185. But he was by the time he finished, I mean, going into his last year, that spring, he PR'd on power clean and squat 4 or 5 times. So he ended up being a 350-pound power cleaner, a 530-pound squatter, and a 360-pound bencher. All right, at 5'7", 185 pounds, and we're hoping he gets drafted. But he has the work ethic too, right? So those are the guys we want to put in the advance. They have a work ethic, and then it kind of gives some of those other players something to work towards, because start getting into it. Some of your better athletes on the field end up being in that advanced group, but we also have starters that are in the modified group. I just have people that don't have the thoracic extension, with the wrist injuries or prior injuries, with lower back injuries that we have to protect, and they end up their starters. I have 2 guys probably in that modified group that will be potential draft picks when it's their time. But those groups are just about placing them and putting them in the right situation. So that's how we always do. That's how we always progress. We're looking at the end goal and we're working backwards from there with everything that we're doing. So I'm not so much concerned about how we'll progress it. The big concern is how much time are they going to give me before the coaches get their hands on them, because they don't understand progression and regression. It's 100 miles per hour. As soon as they get their hands on them. So I think the biggest thing is when they come in, we got to take it easy, and we got to work as if these guys have not done anything for 2-3 months.
And then it kind of goes off, I say, from your developmental 1 group. What do you, Adar asked the question, what do you expect from freshman recruits coming from high school as far as movements? And it's the last part of that kind of scrolled up. Oh, I can't see it. What do you expect? Yep. So what do you expect from your freshman recruits when they come in?
What do I expect? I expect them to not be very good movers. I expect them to tell me that they can bench press 400 pounds, but can't do a plyo push-up. I expect that they're going to tell me they can squat 450, 500 pounds, but can't go into a reverse lunge without tipping over before they go into the next reverse lunge, right? I expect there to be a lot of weight room work and a lot of excitement, but not a lot of functional strength, right? Nothing that translates from the weight room to the field. And that's just what I've seen, and I was the same way. All right, when I went into college, Coach Moffitt put me in a warm-up, a dynamic warm-up that I just could not do. But if you went to my high school, I was the strongest person in the weight room, right? So that's just a little bit of what I expect from my freshmen. So, and they come from a bunch of different backgrounds, and it's not to say anything. I mean, and if we do have any high school strength coaches on this roundtable, right? Every high school strength coach isn't doing what you're doing. They're not trying to learn. They're not trying to figure things out. They're just doing what they've always known, or just, putting a bunch of weight on the bar. So that's what I get a lot of, right? And sometimes you can get away with that because if they're coming to me, that means that they're in the top 1% anyway. You know what I mean? So that's what I expect. Now, every now and then you'll get a kid that comes in and he's ready to go. And honestly, those kids are going to Alabama, LSU, Ohio State, the Michigans, right? They're coming to Arizona. They're coming to, the Pac-12. Traditionally, we're not like the powerhouse. So we're getting guys that we got to develop. So I can't do them like Coach Moffitt did me when I got to LSU. You know what I'm saying? I have to really take a look and how I want to approach these things. And not saying that Coach Moffitt did anything wrong. He just had a different starting point, and as strength coaches, that's what we have to understand. Every individual has a different starting point, and it's our job to find that starting point and then build on it from there. And just because one kid comes in and his starting point is at 5, that doesn't mean that everybody needs to start at 5. And that's just things that I've learned from my experience in playing, and then going and learning from Coach Moffitt and how he did things differently. And even now, like from when I worked for him back in 2014 to now, things have changed. So I've been fortunate to have some really good mentors.
Oh yeah,
of that nature.
I brought you up in the podcast, and he said, "Oh, he just went off that how good of a coach and how good of a guy you were." So
It's good to hear.
it was funny how it all worked out, but he was fun to talk to. But we got another one. We got, what do you have your players doing to help strengthen their necks during this time?
I was thinking about that the other day. I'm like, man, we gotta send some good neck stuff. And they don't have neck machines or any of that stuff. We had and I just lost this assistant. He got out of business. But I had an assistant that was all about the neck. So these guys know how to do manual neck. We do a lot of that. We don't rely on machines. So we have a bunch of different exercises that they can do, and they do it on each other. So that means that they know how to do it, and when they know how to do it, they know how to teach it. So if they have to teach their little brother how to do manual neck, or their dad or mom or whoever's in the house with them while they're quarantined, that they can teach them how to do some of that manual neck, and then we'll pick up on some of the other banded and machine stuff that we have once we get back.
Yeah. Are there any? I mean, are you just doing you're probably just doing the normal movements for the neck just because of what's going on. I know even like for our kids, God bless every kid that plays a sport. Just trying to make it the easiest way possible, but the most effective. So I mean, like we'll put them in, obviously every range of motion for the neck, but just getting them to understand like being able to hold the isometric position of it, or going through the full range of motion and vice versa. Just keeping it as simple as possible.
Yep.
Obviously, a lot of the data from strength and concussions and such. So, I'd say trying for coaches, and wherever you're at, high school or college, trying to get it to be, I'd say, the most specific way possible. But at the end of the day, if little Johnny's got a hold of his, 20-year-old brother's head, and we know how strong he is, we got to find ways to be able to slow it down just in case those scenarios do happen, which I guarantee they do.
Yeah.
So just, being creative with it, if you can find we started doing it, we had yoga mats or like a blanket, you do a 45 degree and be able to stabilize yourself in that position. So, I mean, just simple things that will always be effective. We are always going to take time. Anything else on the neck strengthening?
Yeah, nah,
All right, next one would be, go ahead, Coach. Let's see. Next one is, what do you have your, nope, wrong one. Boy, everyone's, what recommendations have you given your guys on nutrition? Packets, etc.?
Yeah. So it's the same, we preach the same thing that we're preaching here is that we're sending it home. Now, we have a registered dietitian on campus, so we have to be careful when we're, kind of stepping out of our scope of practice. But just a simple recommendations, what to eat, when to eat it. So, you get a little bit into nutrient timing. Certain alternatives in the, going and eating the fast food, what to eat at the grocery store, what you can get from the grocery store. We, even before we left, we tried to get into some cooking classes, some grocery shopping classes that, as a strength staff, we were organized with our nutritionists. So just kind of, all of this is just, we sit here and we do this on a daily basis so they can go forward in the world, whether it's professional or wherever, and have these tools that they can use because we've educated them and we've taught them. So I think we've done a really good job educating them while they were here. So it's really simple. You send out a graphic, just reiterating some of the things that you've already taught and educated them on, and hopefully they're adhering to some of that stuff. But once again, it's, it's all social media. So, even encouraging our nutritionists, hey, can you follow more of our guys so we can push, the nutrition page for the school so they can see some of the recommendations you have? Can you make a graphic or a packet or a sheet to send everybody? So we just recently sent like kind of our phase 2, really more like phase 1.5 for the at-home workouts. And we just give simple nutrition recommendations just because, when you got 85 to 120 guys, you got to imagine they're all going to kind of different socioeconomic situations.
Yeah.
So we just try to keep it as basic possible and give them as many options as we can, hoping that they're able to just make some really good decisions based on what we're doing.
Absolutely. And then the next one we got, for quarterbacks, are you doing any special programming considerations with the shoulder?
Yeah, starting out, I didn't. I just trained my quarterbacks like I did everybody else. And then, sitting in on Zoom meetings and going and listening to people speak. I actually heard a baseball guy talk about how he doesn't do a lot of overhead things with his quarterbacks. It made sense to me. He didn't do a lot of bench pressing where the shoulder blade is restricted on the bench. All right, so finding other ways to do any type of pressing movements where that shoulder blade is still free is able to move freely. So we aren't restricting that movement. And I really kind of applied that for a lot of guys, even guys that we know that have some kind of chronic shoulder stuff, like our linemen. So there are times we kind of, with the quarterbacks always, we kind of keep things from overhead, but we use a lot of landmine stuff with them. So landmine shoulder presses where, you still can get at a good angle where you can hit that anterior delt. Even landmine split jerks where it's not completely overhead. And then if we do a press on the bench, we do like a dumbbell half off so that shoulder blade is off the bench and it's able to move freely. We bought these new cool weight vests where we can actually plate load them. So we can do a bunch of different push-up variations so that shoulder blade is freed up. And then, even like some physio ball stuff, right? Have them kind of feet on the ground, hips up, It's kind of like a tabletop press with shoulders elevated on a physio ball, so they still can move freely with that, the pushing of the physio ball. So those are some of the considerations we've done for our quarterbacks.
Yeah, like even is like, I know a lot of kids are multi-sport athletes and in general, but kind of going along your baseball aspect, we looked into, we have a lot of baseball, softball kids where whether it's a school or a gym I'm at, doesn't really matter. And even overall, just for all of our kids, we just bought, like they're called Jaeger bands for baseball players. Being able to do just, I'd say the daily scope of shoulder work, whether it's internal, external, whether it's, the rotator cuff, doing different Cuban press variations, really simple things, even getting the kids to understand, oscillatory movements and just the most simple. And that was for our throwing and non-throwing kids. And, I found cheap ways to do it, but, if that's something, obviously, Coach Adar asked about that. I mean, you can utilize it for everyone. I mean, even our quarterbacks coach, we do the same thing. I want the scat to move freely as possible. We live under a landmine. We're not, obviously trying to induce any shoulder issues, obviously. And just, being able to strengthen everything around it, as everyone else says. But yeah, I mean, we do it for all of our kids. Just to be as free as possible with, I'd say, all of our kids, just because of, obviously the contact sports and, whether it's field sports, we don't know what position they're going to fall in. So if we can strengthen it, I'm 100% for it, just based on, freak things happening. So it's included for everyone, for us. Let's see, from P. Noonan. Yes, Josh Payne from Bail Strong is an awesome resource. Agree 100%. Let's see, the next one we got, can you go over your steps for energy system development? I like that one. What's up? Let's see. So the question was, can you go over your steps for energy system development?
Energy system development. In football, or almost any sport, you really need all the systems. We definitely need anaerobic and aerobic, right? So training is going to be training. If we're doing something for 2 hours, I'm hitting everything, right? But what we kind of, like I said, we regress it all the way back. All right. So I kind of like to separate things into. I used to separate things. We have like aerobic, so we do like a lot of tempo runs. It was kind of more of our, get the heart rate up, keep it there, type training. And I broke it down into alactic power, alactic capacity, and that's really where I, the most in depth I got with that, as far as just energy system development. But even if I'm in a alactic session, alactic power session where I'm giving full rest and recovery, right? If I'm out there for 45 minutes to an hour, you're going to require some oxygen. It's probably going to start becoming a little aerobic anyway, you know what I'm saying? Especially week 1, week 2. So all of that, you get a little bit of that. It just, you want to manipulate time and volume, you know what I'm saying? And time is always the biggest component it's the biggest component to all of that. So I just manipulate time, right? And then over time, I build it, and it just becomes work capacity, right? Whereas alactic / aerobic. And that's just how I do it. I regress it, and then I take it to, I build the work capacity into where we're just doing a lot of fast movements that are very applicable to the sport with minimal rest time. It's my son.
Yeah, it's like kind of like we talked about earlier on the podcast when we were on there, it's kind of utilizing the resources that you have. So, for, I'd say one of the schools we work with, we have what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think we have 8 player tech fasts. So I've been able to dive into it, but making it as, I'd say realistic as possible without, I'd say, using all the fluff that's around it. We try to stay pretty simple and kind of like you said, we'll start regressed and we'll kind of work our ways up, and, we'll manipulate time, whether it's patterns, whether it's, during certain situations, we try to keep things, I say simple, but getting the feedback from the player tech fest and understanding the workload that we're putting them in.
Yeah.
Actually, that's when I'm, in obviously the work capacity as well. And, it's done well, but even on that end, there's places where we don't have any technology.
Yeah.
Kind of like you said, understanding the regression and progression of the movements and, where each stage is, that's at that point, that's where you need to be. But at the same time, once practice gets going and camp gets going, they're going to be either right at it and they're going to continue to build it as well.
Yeah. And I am fortunate where I have a lot of technology. I got whatever you can name it. Right. And all of those things just point to you manipulate everything with time. That's it. I mean, I got first beat, so I'm heart rate monitoring. So I actually get to sit here. I get to sit during a session with the iPad or a laptop, and I don't have a specific time, right? Especially when we start out, I just know that when everybody's heart rate gets into that blue, which is around like that 70%, it's time for another rep if I'm working a lactic power, right? If I'm trying to get a little more aerobic, those rest times aren't as long, right? And I'm starting that next one up with my Catapult GPS. I can actually look at miles per hour.
Yep.
So I have each individual player's top speed. If in this tempo session, I want to get a certain amount of distance at 75% of their max velocity to make sure we're really getting a true tempo session, I can watch it live and see each individual player, what mile per hour they're hitting, and have an intern with a sheet of paper there with each of their individuals speed at 75%, whatever that number is, and say, hey, you need to speed it up, or hey, you need to slow it down. I have all of that stuff, but at the end of the day, if I had it or not, that time would be the way that I would manipulate any type of energy system training. And then like now I'm to the point where I don't do tempo runs, right? Because on a Monday, I'm instead of me training so much of an energy system, I'm really training like qualities, right? So like Monday, we're coming off a weekend. Saturday and Sunday are off. What is the safest thing to do, right? So that's more like my potentiation day, all right? So I'm just doing like skips. I'll do some dribbles. We'll do a good little warm up, get some blood flow, throw the dribbles, throw some skips in there, maybe some real like acceleration technique work. So Monday I can come in and Tuesday is eventually gonna be our big max velocity high speed day. Now, obviously I'm not gonna start out max velocity speed, but that Tuesday we might do a little more type of acceleration, right? So I worked on technique, I worked on some skips, I've gotten some blood flow Monday, so I potentiated, right? I haven't blasted the central nervous system. Tuesday I'm blasting it, right? The Wednesdays, it ain't an off day, it's more regeneration day. Then Thursday I'm foul, in with some change of direction. You know what I'm saying? And then Friday we'll get a little more capacity work. At the end of the day, right? All of those qualities are going to fit into exactly what they have to do when it comes to their sport. I'm training to change the direction. I'm teaching positions and technique, acceleration, deceleration, max velocity, change of direction, and that's my work. And then over time, what am I doing? I'm manipulating time. I'm increasing the reps, right? So it's going to take a little longer. We're increasing speed, right? So in some situations, you might need a little bit of longer breaks. right? As time goes, we shorten those breaks up because they can handle those speeds with less rest. Hopefully, if you're doing it the right way, right, you're building that work capacity. And then guess what happens? As soon as you start getting to a good place, they go into practice anyway.
Yep.
Practice is gonna take care of everything else that you didn't miss. Now, the one quality that only takes the shortest time to adapt to is what? Aerobic system, right? They can get all that. They can get that every day in practice.
Yep.
Right? If your coaches are doing it right, if you're telling your coaches, hey, this is the day, and then if you're a strength coach, if you're looking at it, be like, hey, maybe we should get a little conditioning session in. It was a light day, wasn't a lot of change direction, a lot of straight ahead. Let's get some shuttle work in, right? Now the day has been complete. Now you've gotten a full day in, right? The next day might be, a real kind of like you're doing a lot of third down stuff, right? So that's a lot of cutting, breaking, decelerating, accelerating, all that good stuff. So what am I going to do if I want to do a conditioning session? I might do some cross fields, half gashes, right? Get a little long, maybe get some speeds up. So it's all about manipulating and how you want to do these things. The biggest thing is time, and then that helps you manipulate any type of volume or intensity.
Yeah.
And then you don't even have to worry about focusing so much on just, am I getting this energy system? Yeah, you getting it. You know what I'm saying?
All adds up in the
You get,
end.
yeah, you get.
100%. Let's see. The next one, if you could design or guide a high school weight room build outside of the racks and bars and weights, what would you suggest they add in a bang for your buck next top things?
Blue hand machines.
Yep.
If you can afford the combo, get the combo so you can throw some reverse hypers and work on that posterior chain, backside of the body. All right. So when y'all send them to me, I'm not starting from scratch, trying to build up hammies and glutes and key wheels and rhomboids and scalp and the posterior delt and everything else back there. You know what I'm saying? Get you some glute ham machines, so you can do some glute ham raises, some back extensions at 90 degrees. If you can do it at 45 degrees, do those too. Some reverse hypers. Oh, that's great. All right. So when they come in, I throw a barbell on the back. They structurally can take it, and I can get less guys in my modified group.
Yeah, I think when it comes to weight room builds, I've been lucky, like kind of like you said, I've been around places that have literally everything and anything.
Yeah.
At your school. But at the end of the day, some of the simplest shit is always gonna work, and
For sure.
but glute hams, reverse hypers, those are beyond valuable. Besides like the other things that you named in that one, I throw in kettlebells just because of how universal that they can be.
A lot of stuff with them.
Yeah, and even in the weight room that we have at a school I work at, I have racks, dumbbells, and kettlebells, and a couple bands. That's literally all I have. And for where we're at, it just being able to manipulate, kind of like you said, whether it's time, eccentrics, isometric, whatever it is. You don't need a massive amount of equipment. I wish I had some of the weight rooms I see on social media, but at the end of the day, all I need is I need some kind of rack and I'd say bar, and after that, I just need simple things, because at the end of the day, you can find plenty of ways, obviously, to manipulate the posterior chain, but also it's always going to come down, kind of like you said in the beginning, you want kids to be able to move, and obviously not be in your developmental group with wrist injuries, shoulder injuries. Obviously injuries happen, but keeping things simple. Obviously trying to think of what else I would put in a weight room at that time, but I'll be honest, I'm so used to having very minimal equipment at some spots, it's the norm. Crap, besides the bars, different resistance bands, obviously, I'd say at a high school level, being able to get kids to understand how to fire the glutes, laugh, stuff like that, simple things. I mean, if it's, if I had all the money in the world, then yeah, I'm going towards, gym aware and stuff like that. But at the same time, not many kids are going to be ready for that kind of capacity or work just based on their basic strength.
Not even close.
And, that's, I don't get me wrong, I love technology, but, there's a time and place for it. And it's usually in the collegiate setting when they're, I'd say physically ready to handle that. Like, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to put a freshman on velocity-based training and we haven't even taught them how to move a barbell yet.
Yeah. And I know we talked about it. I think, getting kids to understand, the process, and I know we're going off topic, but it's an open discussion this time, and, getting kids to understand the process that you're going through for your program. Our kids know the end goal, but they know every single detail before that just because it's drilled in their head in the sense of, us being so detail oriented with movement patterns and, obviously the technique and everything that goes behind it, where kids understand, why we're doing certain things. So like I'd say when it comes to, hinging and stuff like that,
Yep.
I'd say even at, other places I've been, exactly how to do it, whether it is against the wall and you're just getting, a freshman to do it, whether it's at collegiate or high school, and slowly progressing it. I think that's, where the limited equipment comes, stagnates from for me, because movement's been such a high capacity. But
Yeah.
I know we talked about it in the podcast, and if you, gentlemen, I know the other people that are on here, you can please feel free to unmute yourself and join the conversation. It is 100% oriented that way, where you guys can, speak and answer questions as well. It is completely open. Please feel free. We want to do something a little bit different than what the norm is with other, I'd say, presentations usually. So please feel free to unmute yourself and, speak up and be willing to ask questions. We both have no issue with that. That's kind of the reason why we wanted to do it like this today. But, I know for a lot of people, speed is always a question. So, what are your main components of your speed program? Whether it was a high school program or where you're at now, are there always mainstay movements that you guys would always do? And if so, what are they?
Yeah, technique. I was always you kind of build the race. So for me, that's always posture and being able to maintain that posture, right? The foundation of strength and whatever you're trying to do, right, is strengthening the core. All right. So that's usually where we start. We always really start with acceleration, and just teaching those proper angles to be in acceleration. I'm not huge on like 3-point stance and everything, because if you're in a 3-point stance on a football field, that means you're about to run into something. So, we get into positions that we're going to be in positionally. Our receivers get that big split, kind of that 2-point. Our linebackers might get into like a neutral. We'll do some scramble up stuff, just getting them in those proper positions. We took a course at Altus, and they called it your attack angles. All right, so that's what we're teaching, and I was one of those guys. I always taught, stay low, come out low, right? And then wonder why you're watching guys stumble out all the time and slow 10 and slow 20s. So that's really what we're just teaching technique and letting each guy get comfortable in their whatever position that they're in. And then, you start looking at a lot of soft tissue stuff. Usually it's because they aren't ready for a lot of those high speeds, those high velocities. So by just kind of starting out teaching a lot of acceleration, that's when the most force is being put into the ground. So you're actually doing a lot of strengthening work for the hamstring and the quad, strengthening the hip flexors. Um, we bang out a lot of dribbles. We'll start from ankle dribbles, calf dribbles to the knee dribbles, and we're reiterating that whole foot contact because it's still like a unnatural position, but it kind of reinforces the pulling back, that motion of pulling back, right? And the foot isn't supposed to hit right up directly in front of the hip. It is going to land slightly in front of the hip. But once you get upright and then you get into that pulling sensation, we try to build that up. So that helps with a lot of building up. I mean, you get a lot of hypertrophy work in the hip flexors and the hamstrings through those dribbles. So we kind of start out with that stuff. So, we're moving fast as far as out the gate from an acceleration standpoint, but anything vertical, I'm teaching technique and posture and position. So once again, as we progress through this thing, those accelerations start getting longer and we start getting in the top speed. And then that's when I, transition out of so much skipping and dribbling to actually, some wickets, some wicket runs, some build ups, some flying sprints. And then we get into some curves, we build in some long curves where we kind of get a little competitive in some of that stuff as we go. So it's just like everything. It's just about regressing. And just as you would in the weight room, it was funny, I was at Altus and they brought up a good point. They're like, most strength coaches are PhDs in the weight room, but we're elementary level outside on the field when it comes to sprinting. And that applied to me 100%, which is why I was there. So just like we, even you start, how we mailbox guys, we got a developmental group, we got a modified group, we got the team, and we got the advanced group. Now we're starting to mailbox guys outside. All right, who are my overstriders? Who are my guys who are all backside? Who's kind of that prancer, right? They like to they like to look athletic and feel athletic, so everything's on the ball of the foot. You know what I'm saying? They don't dorsiflex at the foot. So, we start mailboxing those guys. So now we have specific cues for each one of them. The more we start watching, and that all kind of starts with those short acceleration work where we get some good volume. We don't need a whole lot of break, whole lot of rest, because you don't want them to start hitting those max velocities. And especially in week one, really week one is more of a lactic capacity, because the way to self-regulate that is what I said before, is time, right? This week one, they're getting tired. If you got 10, sprints after a good long warm up, so you don't have to worry about anybody getting in anything close to max velocity. What do they put on the buses? A governor, all right, to where you get up to 50 miles per hour and you hear that thing, it starts backing down on its own. So that's how we kind of manipulate time and manipulate some of those speeds. So it's just about finding what's important to you and regressing it all the way back, especially coming out of a break, and especially when it comes to something really fast too.
Yeah, and we're doing the same thing. Obviously, everything's on social media, but taking steps back to get the kids to understand. Luckily, our kids we're figuring it out slowly but surely.
Yeah.
But whether it's the dribbles, whether it's different skip variations, just all technical work where hopefully we're kind of like you say, we're kind of building that capacity up where, and obviously we're not going to hit the ground full speed running in the sense of the day one, but we're going to have the capacity hopefully behind some of the running where we can start to initiate that. But getting kids to understand that there are slow speed movements to be able to teach and be able to utilize. Like I did the Altus short sprint or the Altus sprint course, and then hearing from Tony Hollard, renowned speed guy as well, and Carl Val, people want to go as fast as possible right away, but in reality, you said it best, is understanding the regressions and the point you want to get to. And I think it gets messed up a little bit, strength and conditioning, kind of like you said.
Yeah.
You can get a PhD in the weight room, but in reality, like when it comes to actual sprinting, you know, like I'm going to find my source, kind of like you did. I did all this, going, reaching out, but let's see, last one. Earlier you mentioned about movement screening. Do you guys use FMS? Do you like it?
No, we don't use FMS. Our program is Fusionetics. It's very similar to FMS, though. I don't know if there are any of them that are just completely different than the other. I think they're still the same basic concepts. I know when FMS was first coming out and I looked into it, you know, they take you through it, but they didn't give you much of a solution. Like they didn't tell you, okay, well, if you're seeing this, this is how you fix it. So it's probably like a rendition of FMS, but it isn't. It isn't FMS. I know people that use FMS and they love it. I don't think you go wrong with FMS. NASM has a certification, a corrective exercise specialist certification is really good. I mean, even if you just find a way to get your hands on a book, because it's expensive, man, it's a great reference. You can always go back to it, and it's simple. It's not crazy. It's not hard. And there's such a library, a catalog of exercises you can do for certain things and progress and regress. I wouldn't limit myself to just one thing. I mean, once you're gonna start getting into those movements assessments and seeing how different everybody is, you're gonna want to have a big library of stuff. But I would definitely try to get I think I have it. My makeshift office. Let me see if I got the book so I can show it to you.
Yeah, you know, going along with what Coach Johnson was saying is, you know, like we utilize.
I don't have it here.
FMS.
Yeah, NASM. Look into NASM Corrective Exercise Specialist. It's a good one. So even if you do go into FMS, you still want to look in that book, and it gives you. It's a great reference.
Yeah, it's like we use. I'd say, just based on, you know, obviously kids, we don't have the expenditure of, you know, ATs and stuff, being able to do that in PTs. You know, like we, at our level, you know, we had to manipulate things a certain way just because of flow. And it's you know, it takes me, I don't even want to know about how many hours it would take me to go through everything. Yeah. So, you know, like utilize parts of it, kind of like you said. I'll pull stuff from NASM, I'll pull stuff from Supple Leopard, but understanding where my thought process is and the patterns you know, obviously are very common. You know, having I'd say not a massive library, but, you know, understanding that we can, kind of like you said, you can segment groups, kind of like you said in mailboxing, you know, your kids. Same thing where, you know, you have those, I'd say, very common issues or, you know, movement patterns or fallacies that we need to fix. I think it's an easy way where you can kind of start to mailbox, you know, whatever group you're in. So we utilize a bunch of different things just because of time. I think Coach Adar, I think you can look at so many different scripts of how people do it. Like we've used a Leopard. He changed his company name. I can't even think of what it's called now.
Yeah.
Like we reference what Coach Johnson said. We utilize that, I'd say, a lot. And, you know, just we like a couple different companies. Like we have you know, I'm not a doctor, so I you know, obviously kind of like you said, I know where I stand in my scope of practice. So we'll have someone come in and go through, I'd say, more valuable segments that, you know, a PT, doctor, you know, physician, where they can diagnose certain things. Because obviously in my scope of practice, I can't do that. You know, and I'll pay the extra money to do that just to get the information that I want. But, you know, utilizing, I'd say, kind of your community base of, you know, who would want to help. It comes to us in a way where, you know, we have 2 or 3 guys that will come in, do the screening. You know, they do it for free, and I'm paying for dinner, so that's where I'm coming in. But it gets gives it a little bit more valuable information that we probably wouldn't be able to find compared to like a PT or AT that like Coach Johnson would be able to have them do all that as well. So kind of utilizing, I'd say, the surroundings as well. But when it comes to books, he kind of hit it on the spot. There's hundreds out there. I know a new one it's more neuromuscular. It's called Square One, and they're all neuromuscular, junction based. I'll be honest, I'm a guinea pig. Definitely tried it. And let's put it this way, guys. I'm 11 knee surgeries in, completely messed up. And, on a table, lifting my leg up, trying to push it in, it literally went like butter. Went straight in. Couldn't even tell you. Did some signaling things, and it wouldn't move at all. And I literally sat there and was shocked and just blanked, literally, because there's so many more components to where the mobility issue is, but also, what is sending that signal down the line. For me, it's being through all these injuries, having, new bones put in and a bunch of other stuff. I'll be honest, it's frustrating because, everyone says mobility and they PT and a bunch of other stuff can fix it. But, what we figured out is, if your brain isn't signaling things the right way, it's causing part of that problem. Obviously, I'm not a doctor. I'll let them do that work. But, it's an interesting thing is he's got it's called Signal 6. And it's like a course. It's like $95. And it's awesome. Even the kind of the same things along with RPR that a lot of people are using. So that might be another work to look into as well. Any more? I think, going back to the podcast for everyone else, I know we talked about it. I think one of the unique things is, your perspective on, I'd say a lot of things, Coach Johnson, but, the perspective of, getting people to understand the culture. And I know, like, you've been, I can't remember how many different places, but going from to Arizona with Coach Sumlin, getting kids to understand, like, the buy-in. And we both kind of agreed, and, obviously coaches feel free to kind of unmic yourself. There's, 4 left. And this will be the last part is, Coach Johnson kind of said it best is, if they're going to drink the Kool-Aid, like, I'm going to drink it too. I'm not going to lie, I'm a straight meathead. I love lifting stuff, but at the same time, is to understand the process that it goes through and what you have to do to get there. So, we'll do the same programs our kids understand that, like, I'm willing to go through it. I have no issues. But, can you, explain kind of, what we talked about in the sense of, the buy-in aspect and, getting kids to not only the respect factor, but also the, I'd say the culture or value part of it. I thought what we talked about on the podcast was phenomenal. I think the last 4 should hear it, and then we can let everyone free.
Yeah. I mean, for me, and this is just how I was when I was a player. Like, you're asking me to do something, and I just, you get so caught up in sometimes as coaches, we like to make ourselves something that we necessarily aren't. And not saying that we aren't, but, it's like, you go fishing, and me and my dad would go fishing, and we catch 3 fish, and you always say, hey, when we get back, you tell everybody we caught 8 fish. You know what I'm saying? And we kind of do that to ourselves, right? We make ourselves something so great, and then the longer you're in this thing, I was this and this and this and this and this and that, and then and then you're getting on this player for messing up or not doing something right. So a lot of my approach is kind of humanizing myself, right? The guy that might not be the hardest worker has got a lot of potential, but needs somebody to kind of be there and teach them the way to do the right things. That's how you get buy-in, right? You tell them, hey, man, I was like that. All right. There were times where I didn't work as hard as I should have. I didn't, I was supposed to do 10 reps. I did 8. You know what I'm saying? And when I did that, I didn't get the results that I wanted. I didn't, I had the red shirt. I didn't play. I didn't start. All right. There was a guy in front of me that I thought I was better than, right? But he did 10 reps. You know what I'm saying? And it's not that you're a bad person because you did that. It's not that uh, you're not as good as everybody else. It just means that you have to get out of some of your natural human characteristics and you got to become something else. You got to do those 10 reps. And then when you start doing 11 to 12, 10, I guarantee you'll start getting better results. And I'm telling you this not because I've always done those 11 or 12 reps. Is because I had to be taught. I had to teach myself. I had to push myself. And even now at 36, I still have to do that. So when you put yourself on that level so they see, okay, yeah, I'm not perfect and I have to work at this thing every day, whatever it is that you're telling them, whatever you're sticking to and saying your culture is, when you can put yourself in it and humanize yourself to say, there was a point where I didn't do it, but it's important to me now because I know doing it this way is going to get you the result that you want. It might not come exactly the way that you want it. It might not come when you want it. It might not happen until you're my age and you're 36 and it comes to getting a job promotion and you got to compete with somebody. But it's going to help you at some point. And I think when you humanize and you give those stories and you hold them to it and you preach it day in and day out and day in and day out, and even on some of those days where you're not even feeling like doing it, right? You let them know that, like, look, I didn't want to get out of bed at 6 o'clock this morning and come in here and be yelling and screaming and motivating y'all to do it, right? But on my way into work, that's what I dedicated myself to doing because it's my job. I get a paycheck to do it, and it's my responsibility to do it for y'all. That's how you get buy-in to me. You got to put yourself, you got to live the same way that you're asking them to live. And it ain't gonna be perfect. You're not gonna do it the right way every day. Neither are they. But you just like you're gonna hold them to that standard, you hold yourself to that standard, and they'll know that about you. They'll see it. All right. You'll mess up. I'll have my warm-up paper right there in my face, right? And I'll say the wrong exercise or I'll mess up and they get on me and I'm getting on myself, right? And then that's how they buy in because they're like, okay, yeah, he's living it too. It's an everyday process. It's not something you're gonna get magically some morning and every other morning is gonna be like that, right? And that's how you build a culture of people who fix things that go when they go wrong because they understand that just because it happened this one way this one time doesn't mean it has to happen that way every time on either end of the spectrum.
Yep.
We wanted a result that we don't want.
Yeah, and I think, like we were talking about, and you kind of hit on it, like coaches, sometimes we get stuck in, I'd say sometimes the power trip role. I'm sure we've all been there, but, being able to humanize yourself and, kind of like we were talking about a podcast, every kid we deal with is different. Like I've had some interesting experiences, but, been able to learn from it, but, you don't always know what exactly you're dealing with. It could be the most happiest, go-lucky kind of kid.
Yeah.
But there's some deep down, I'd say darkness, so to speak. And, obviously it's not our job to find that. And, we're not psychologists by any means, but, having those, having conversations, even at Northwestern, I go walk the classes, go check them. I'd go like 15 minutes early so I could have at least 10 minutes of time just being able to see the kids, ask how the family's doing, ask how they're doing, where in the long run, it just added up over time. And you almost self-create that by doing, by being a human, being willing to, put yourself out there a little bit more than others. So, but gentlemen, I do appreciate your time. For everyone that's on here and was on here, but Coach Johnson, I appreciate your time. Obviously I took you away from your kid, so I appreciate it. But no, thank you for your time and obviously your knowledge. It's beyond appreciated. I know everyone else will appreciate it as well. And it means more than and obviously we're all from different, different worlds in the strength and conditioning field, but I appreciate you being, opening yourself up and willing to be on here.
It's great.
if anyone needs to, find Coach Johnson on Instagram or Twitter, it's _Coach BBE1, the number 1. It is also in the chat. Don't make the mistake of forgetting the underscore. I did that. Didn't realize it, but I'll own up to that one. No, thank you for your time. I appreciate it, and hopefully, my goal is most people that are on the podcast, I'm gonna try and figure out how to either drive or fly to a game. So
Yeah.
I'll keep you updated on that.
You got the number, man. Let me know.
I appreciate it. No, and thank you everyone else for your time. I appreciate it. We'll be back on Thursday. So I appreciate it, Coach.
All right. Yeah, no, good. Hey, everybody have a good one.
Appreciate it. Stay safe.